Hey everyone, what's up? And welcome back to another one of these chill commentary videos while I write some music. As you can see this time, we're using the Big Kids DAW Pro Tools. That's because this footage is from me scoring some music for a short animation. This awesome short was done by a student who reached out to me recently needing some music, and I was so excited because it has this underwater sci-fi theme to it, which are like my two favorite themes. Also, I enjoyed it because the animation is just genuinely really well made. So, this video, we're just gonna be chillin', and I'm gonna talk a little bit about how I made the score and stuff. So yeah, let's see here. Something I find interesting about scoring other people's stuff is matching their vision. I think an element of composing that sometimes can get forgotten is just how much you often have to adapt your abilities to be something you wouldn't normally think to do. You have to have enough creative judgment to write stuff that fits whatever you're writing for, while still having space for the idea itself, you know? Sometimes it can be tricky because you may end up writing something that you wouldn't associate with the themes of the video. And while I'm confident enough in my abilities to write for just about any demand at this point, I find myself personally less invested a little bit when things get really jarring like that. I've had a few experiences like that, but I think this particular project was not one of them. I do find though, whenever I have repeat clients, it goes from, these are exactly the types of cues I want for these exact scenes, to, yeah, you know what you're doing, you know what fits. It just kind of works out that way. And that's a pretty big compliment for me, so we chillin'. Knowing how to interpret a scene and where not to put music is also something I think is really important. The animator behind this project wanted some music with a similar vibe to the wonderful soundtrack of A Rain World, which I was more than happy to work with. I was told to start somber and ominous, making things more hectic while the two characters make their escape, and then have this freedom sound towards the end. All while giving off that air of sci-fi, you know? While I wrote some little motifs with piano and strings and stuff, the pads and more synthetic textures really carried this score, I think. It took a little bit, but once I started experimenting with some cool, droning sounds, I think the vibes really came together. I find that often that seems to be the case with scoring video, actually. When I get started, it's kind of meh for a little bit, and then I'll record one track, and it just instantly gets me into the grind mode and the flow state, and suddenly everything starts coming together. There have been a few times I've done film scores for people, and they'll say something like, oh, this part sounds like a video game, or this section would be good in a game, but it's a bit too gamey for my movie. And I never see this as a bad thing, because I, of course, freaking love video games, and I subconsciously take a lot of inspiration from them, even for mediums that are not games. And sounding like a game doesn't mean it sounds like 8-bit. While the ones telling me this aren't audio people, they probably wouldn't be able to put their finger on it. I think that feeling comes from how I loop and phrase my ideas, not so much the quality of sound. As I'm sure anyone who has watched any of my stuff now knows that I go back and forth reintroducing stuff through loops, and I use it to my advantage in a variety of ways. I do the same thing with film scores too, trying to keep them within a structure as much as possible while still moving them with the visuals. My film scores definitely aren't as concrete because the videos are never made with that specific workflow in mind. I try my best to maintain the 4, 8, whatever bar section loops as best I can, but I often have to adapt it to whatever way I think will fit the scene changes or whatnot. Even if that means having a singular silent bar of 7, 8 or something. For scoring videos, I often find that I'll write music as normal, then go through it again with some lead or noticeable sounds and play accents on important cues in the video. Sometimes these little recordings make sense within the music, and sometimes they're just on random offbeats in the musical metric. For example, in this animation, once I had written the music foundation of the escape scene, I went through again and just hit pad accents on doors closing and alarms, and flute runs as the two characters slide under the door at the end. These things just add a little flair, I think. You may not even notice these details while watching. They might just subconsciously fit into the scene for you, which means it's all going according to plan. If you're watching the little video window, you can definitely see I go back and forth a lot. It probably looks like I'm just watching this thing over and over and the progress is slow. And yes, I am watching the videos a lot. I'm always looking for details to use for ideas, and I want to make sure all the emotion is expressed through all the layers of the music. In particular, I really like the robot character in this animation. The artist did a frickin' fantastic job making it very expressive while still, well, like a robot. I enjoy syncing up cues to its head tilts and the like, but also I find myself just watching or listening to whatever I'm working on a lot. Anybody else do that? Like, sometimes I won't know what to add next, so I'll just watch or listen to everything I have so far, and if I still don't know, I'll just watch it all again. I do this in Ableton too. Am I proud of the stuff I have so far, or is it procrastination? Let's just call it some productive analysis for now. Since I plan the whole structure out while tempo mapping, I usually work from start to finish of the video, recording a foundation for each part, then going back with more as I develop the vibe of the score. However, sometimes I'll start at a climactic point in the movie so I can sort of downscale those themes elsewhere. This can also be really good, as I find the big epic parts are the sections I'm most excited about, and what inspires me to actually get into it. Same thing with games too, or really most projects actually. If I start with like a boss theme, it's easy to have more fun, whereas if I start with a level 1 or menu theme, I'll never be fully satisfied with it and I feel the whole project is boring. I'd love to hear if anyone else is the same. Safe to say, I really enjoyed writing for this animation. It's always really easy to get invested when the video looks as polished as this one. I've done a whole variety of scores for animations now, some of which are on this channel, but this one really stood out to me. And while I had lots of fun, these kinds of projects never fail to pop up when I'm at my busiest. Between working multiple jobs, writing for any gigs I can get, networking, making YouTube content, and yeah, lots going on all the time. But it's all chill. It's all about the grind. And for projects as cool as this, I will always find the time to write some music for it, because I love doing it. But back to the animation itself. Once I had everything recorded, I did a few dramatic changes in volume for some tracks, as I was hearing some phase conflicts with all the pads I was using. My mixes, as per usual, are never that complicated, and I mixed the whole thing to -23 LUFS, as that's just the typical standard. Luckily for me, I got it within that range in only like 4 bounces, which is a very pleasant surprise, as it often takes like 6 or 7 for me for some reason. I then sent it off to the artist to hear their thoughts, and it was a success! And once the animation was fully finished, I resynced the audio back in, and done. What a fun time that was. So why don't we watch the final product together to celebrate? I think it turned out really cool. I love how the little speech bubbles of the characters have this techie dissolve effect too. I'll also upload the final product by itself on the channel, so you don't have to comb through this whole video to watch it. And I'll link the animator too, because they have some big talent. Alright, and that's another project and video done. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And yeah, okay, cool. I'll see you guys later. Cheers!